I'm so sorry. Our everything just sort of cut out and I have no idea.
Okay.
I've never had that happen before. So this was
Is it just our room or others?
everyone's just sort of closed out at once because we had a blip. So
Okay.
I'm really sorry. So I have made you a co-host again.
Okay. I lost your audio if you're talking to me.
Oh, I was just saying I was admitting everybody back in.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm so sorry,
Here
everyone.
comes everyone.
We had a technical blip, and so we lost our connection all at once. So it automatically ended the meeting, which it shouldn't have. I think Andy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make you the host,
Okay.
just so that way, if that happens again,
Okay.
it shouldn't.
All right.
That,
Oh, there's somebody else admitting.
how the heck can he do that? I would love to do that.
Participants. Screen is far away from me. I'm going to mute everybody for now. Admit. Okay, let's try to get this started. I'm going to close my participants window because it's kind of in my way. And hope that everybody's made it back. Okay, so once again, I don't know where I got cut off exactly, but my name is Andy Tinknell. I'm the Learning Commons Coordinator at Forsyth Library Learning Commons at Fort Hays State University in Hays, Kansas. Today, we're talking about reinvigorating the one-button studio. Admit. The QR code and the link at the bottom link back to this slide presentation. So you're able to refer to this later if you'd like also, so you might want to jot it down. It has links throughout, including to the design guide, which I hope you'll find very helpful. And the next page will have a little bit more of that QR code and that bit.ly. So real quick, my job here at the library is Learning Commons Coordinator. So I am in charge of a lot of the all of the collaboration, communication, study areas throughout the library, as well as technology support. So I answer all the questions about Microsoft Office and Adobe Creative Cloud, Google Apps, whatever, anything that our technology group does not actually cover. So how to make a header, all that good stuff. Have a long video production background, and but mostly it's out in the field and recording stuff and then bringing it back to edit. So a little less on studio stuff, but kind of did a lot of Googling and things and hammered this together. Basically because our media lab is what we've always called it, even though it was based on the one button studio. So I forget what I was saying, but anyway, the one button studio is the model we started out with. I went whole hog on all the purchases and stuff. I got the Chromat background you can see behind me is currently green. I did the one button studio cabinet, followed all the instructions exactly as they were supposed to be, and it worked great for a while. But after a little bit, number one, Penn State kind of stopped supporting it. They've moved on to version 2.0 or 2 point something, and they are no longer providing the updates to the public. And so it felt like some of the hardware and the software were running behind, and as other things upgraded. And so I just decided it was time to look at something else. Our flash drives wouldn't always work when you plugged them in anymore. People wouldn't bring their own flash drives. We were borrowing. We had a jar set up where one was full of flash drives you could borrow, another one was for return. And the full of flash drives one kept emptying without filling up the other one. So they weren't coming back. And that got to be a little bit of an expense for us. So we've changed it so everything just uploads straight up to a Google Drive. By the way, real quick, I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes and then we'll open this up because I know it's a round table. So I do want to hear from you. I've got talking points and stuff. So I hope you will participate later. But also the button didn't always work anymore, and you couldn't buy a new button. There was some sort of replacement substitute thing, but it just seemed like it was time to try something else with that. The light board took too much setup because we had kind of an all-in-one setup where we had to pull the light board in front of the camera. And then I've got these baby reflector things that go in cars to keep the sun off the babies. So I was having to put those on the monitors and things so people could still see what they were doing. But at the same time, it didn't reflect into the light board. So I wanted a way to have the light board have its own setup where you didn't have to move it all the time, and but still be on the same system. And so I was able to achieve that. And green screen was very popular, but it required editing, and just didn't seem as user-friendly to, come in and do one button and then, oh, go edit also. So I was looking for a way to do real-time green screen and was able to achieve that. So improvements that we made. I'm going to actually let a little video I've got explain a lot of that in a second, but the real key to this turned out to be the OBS Studio, which sounds very, very much like One Button Studio, but it's a whole different application. It's free. A lot of gamers use it to record stream game casts, and YouTubers, things like that, use it a lot. So it is a free application that can be used for streaming, but also has a recorder built into it. And so that's what we use. And so the recordings actually records two formats. MKV, it records one format. Let's try that again. It can record, has the ability to record several formats, but MKV is apparently the one that works the best. Now, MP4 is a lot better for editing for the most part. So one of the advantages is it also automatically remuxes the MKVs into MP4s. So the Google Drive actually has 2 files for each video, and I just tell the students to make sure they download the second one. So the key to this whole thing is the multi-view, the keypad, and the hotkeys. So here's the keypad. Let me zoom in on that for you. So this is just a accounting type number pad, a USB external number pad that I've removed keys from and relabeled. We did this have this as numbers, and I think I like that better. You'll see that in the design guide that they're numbers, but we're trying out some new signage, and now's a good time for me to show you that as well. So I've robbed our lightboard camera today and turned it into a demo camera. So this is what I'm looking at right now. And you can see here is the multi-view I'm referring to. So if I push the first button, it is kind of the standard view of the room. Normally it's a gray background because that's what this is without the green light on. Then we have a little bit of a zoom, which would probably work better with 4K. I've been having a little bit of trouble getting 4K to work reliably, but this is 1080, but it doesn't look very soft to me. I think we're in good shape. This is a full screen green screen, but thought it'd be nice to be able to get out of the way of the slide sometimes. So we put that one on there, and we've got it without any visual at all. And then the next one is so that's a quick overview of how that all worked. We are working on some new signage. Let's go back to the demo camera real quick. So we've got some signage that didn't make it into the design guide because it's still in the rough draft format with instructions about how it all works. A place to return the mouse and the keyboard, and the remote control, which is what they're calling the number pad. So now we'll just play this little short video here, and you can kind of get a little tour of what the room looks like. A quick overview of the room. On the upper right, you can see the lightboard camera mounted upside down, a flap on the window to cover the light reflecting on the lightboard, the main camera with the minion attention getter on the old One Button Studio cabinet. We have a microphone, the lighting, our stand-in with the number pad, an electron that can be moved, the chrome matte background, We have a television there for over-the-shoulder PowerPoints, as well as the Mac for video editing. Since the flash drive activation of the lights is now out of the mix and the home automation equipment was dated and difficult to recreate, I opted for a simple wireless remote control plug-in, like many people use for outdoor Christmas lights. I was able to plug all 3 lights into this and used a Velcro strip to stick the switch next to the fluorescent light switch. People come in all shapes and sizes, and the rigid camera mounting that I had wasn't working well for people of different heights. So I replaced it with an old cheap tripod with the camera mounted backwards so users can work with the handle. They can also pedestal up and down. One of the key benefits of implementing OBS Studio is that it allows real-time green screen with no editing. I've taken the Mac Mini that used to be the heart of the One Button Studio and plugged it in as a display computer. So whatever shows up on it appears on the green screen. It can be a PowerPoint, a screen capture, or a full screen photo or video. I've used the One Button Studio hub still attached to the Mac Mini to add a wireless mouse and keyboard, remote control dongle, and a jack for people to plug in a flash drive with their PowerPoint or other background. Finally, I've replaced the flash drive recording media with Google Drive for Desktop. A QR code and shortened URL direct users to where they can download their video. So I just saw a chat that said, "You're muted." I assume that was me. It looks like I'm not muted anymore. So thank you for whoever fixed that. And thank you, Alyssa. And hopefully we didn't miss too much content in that, because I don't know how long I was muted. But let me get rid of this chat window here. I've got a lot going on here because I'm actually running this, if you haven't noticed, through the One Button Studio. And so it is, or sorry, the OBS Studio, the Media Lab. So I'm making it do a lot of things it doesn't normally do today, but you can actually, it's got a, just extra information here. It's got a virtual camera that will output to Zoom or other things. So whatever you have on the OBS Studio will go out as a composite to wherever you want to send it. So the improvements I've made, again, are right there. I don't think I need to go through any more of them. They were already kind of enumerated through the video, and we'll have time for questions later. This is a video that plays outside of the room. It's the way that students can kind of understand how to use the room along with the signage that we're putting together now. And so once again, you can see how the number pad used to look. We do have the Chromat screen that turns on the green screen, and the start and stop button. You can see down at the bottom, the red circle we'll talk about in a minute. That's one of the things I'd like to get to do a little bit better, and how you can download the video. That signage will change also because we are working on new signage. So some of the challenges I've had is no countdown for recording start. I don't really miss this. I don't think too many people will. In fact, sometimes people on the One Button Studio would start before the countdown ended, but some people might miss it, so I threw it on here. Not as easy to tell when recording is active. So that's what I was kind of referring to while that last video is playing. Let me try to share my screen real quick and kind of see what I'm actually looking at. So this is the control area of the OBS Studio, separate. So I've got this on one monitor and that multi-view with all the frames on another monitor. And so way down here, we have this live and record 000. If I hit the record button, it'll turn red and start counting, but it's a little small. So I'd like to blow that up. I've looked at things to do with external tally lights with like Raspberry Pis and all sorts of plugins and stuff, but the coding was beyond me. I'm not a coder, so haven't had much luck doing that. So if anybody has any ideas for that, awesome. So I'll stop my recording. You can see that it's processing and uploading now to the Google Drive. Let's stop sharing. It's not as easy to tell when recording is active. Ring lights on the light board. So I've got ring lights clamped to the frame of the light board so that rather than having the Media Lab lights work for that, the light board is lit on its own, but they're plugged into the power strip that lights up the frame for the light board. However, you've still got to turn on each of those lights individually. When you turn it off on the power strip, everything goes off, and that's great. But I'd like to be able to have it be one switch, but I can't figure out how to rewire it. A recording in progress light up sign that I have on the studio door no longer comes with the rest of the lights. With the home automation modules or whatever you want to call them that One Button Studio had, I had an extra one. So I just plugged that into there. So whenever somebody plugged in the flash drive and the lights came up in the room, it also came up out there so that people wouldn't barge in on users. But now it's got its own switch. So you just have to remember to turn it on as you come in. And 4K isn't working consistently for me. That might be because I have too many inputs already. I don't know. This would be better for digitally zooming in like we've talked about before with this. So this is not digitally zoomed. This is. But you can move images around within OBS, just like I've got down here with me down here at the bottom. It's the same camera, just digitally manipulated, like you can do on After Effects or all sorts of other compositing things. I'll check out this chat real quick. Also, please feel free to take until the 2:30. Okay. Well, that'll be up to you guys because I'm close to being done here, and then you guys can take over with how much you want to talk. So that's the challenges I've had. But this is just another screen that kind of shows you how easy it is to work the room. More instructions, basically. Here is the design guide. So the design guide is a list of all the stuff that I used to build the Media Lab. Once again, I try to recycle as much stuff as possible. We're using the same camera as we did with OBS Studio. The computer was no longer up to snuff to be able to run this, the Mac Mini that we had, but it is actually providing the feed for the green screen. So right now I'm looking on to, well, let's just show you this one. So this left-hand monitor over here is the Mac Mini, and I've just got a HDMI coming out of that, plugged right into the computer using a HDMI to USB converter. And that makes it into basically a web camera as another source. And so it can play full screen video or screen captures or whatever. It's just everything that comes out of that goes and feeds the green screen. So that's what the Mac Mini is doing now. I did have to get a different computer. I'm lucky that we have a computing center who kind of thinks of me because I'm a scrounger. When they have something extra that they're not using anymore, they will let me either long-term borrow it or just have it a lot of times. So the design guide will mention some minimum specs for a computer. Those are just the minimum specs that I found work. But there was a big gap between the two computers that I really tried this with, the laptop that I use on a day-to-day basis, and the laptop I use on a day-to-day basis and this one. So this one was able to handle it, and the specifications for this computer are down here. But I do think that probably a lesser computer could handle it. Same microphone as before. Input adapters, these are really things that I've really fallen in love with during the pandemic. They're tiny little guys. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. So they look like that. They just take the HDMI and turn it into an input instead of only an output like most computers have. Monitor, about any monitor will do. I've recycled the monitors I use for One Button Studio and added another one. That's another thing I hoard a lot is televisions. I use them for digital signage. I'll hook up Raspberry Pis to them and stuff. Whole different research initiative that I have going on there. Tally light, still working on lighting. Yeah, basically for lighting, by the way, it's kind of fun. I've just taken a Christmas, I think we talked about that in the video. I wasn't able to hear the video, by the way, sorry. Just a Christmas tree remote control light, and I just Velcroed it to right next to the light switch right there. And the actual extension cord part of it is hidden behind the black curtain over there where we use also for storage. So as we move down here, we get into all the screenshots I use that show all the different settings I have. So I'd like this to be kind of a share alike type of thing, a lot like the One Button Studio started out with, where if you guys want to try to put this together, go for it. You've got my contact information on the slide deck. So if you have any questions, I'm not a professional at this. I just, like I said, Googled a lot of stuff and hammered it out, but hopefully you'll find it to be easy enough to set up on your own and do Googling on yourself by yourself. But I love brainstorming on this sort of stuff. I like to reuse and recycle things. So anything I can do to make things on the down low. We're a small university that doesn't have a big budget. So I like to see what I can do to scrounge things up. So that's the design guide. We can talk about more questions of that. And here's the chance for you guys to talk, and hopefully this will work. Because I haven't heard anybody really throughout this whole thing. So I've got a list of talking points here. You guys can hit them in any order that you want. I'll lead you through them if you want in order or whatever, but this is a time for you guys to kind of take over the roundtable part of it. You can ask me questions about my setup. There are alternative solutions. I talked, when I was going through this, I just got back from an EDUCAUSE conference in San Diego and learned about their user groups, which are really nice. And one of the user groups, I put a plea for help on about how to get a computer, which was my laptop at the time, not to stutter with this. And they had all sorts of other solutions that they're using as well. And so those alternatives are also listed within the design guide. I'd like to know what your studios are like. What are you guys doing? And we're actually having a little trouble getting people into our studio now. So maybe they're not so relevant anymore because of the pandemic and the technologies that came along with the pandemic. I think it was the instructional technologies user group. Thanks for that question. So if they are relevant, what promotional things do you do to get students and faculty, we don't care who uses it, students, faculty, staff, to come in and use those? So I'm gonna open up the chat window on my side here and see if I can read it. I didn't think about the fact that a lot of these things would be chatted, so feel free to unmute your microphones as well. Thank you for the great presentation. Thanks. Which EDUCAUSE group? We didn't really recycle anything in our OBS. We made it into a nice private multimedia studio. Okay, very nice. I love the chat, by the way, but I envision this as more of a everybody turn on their microphones when they're ready to talk and just chime in. So I think that might make the conversation a little bit better, but we'll go through with the chatting as well.
Right.
For lighting switches, I like the be-in link plugs and remote. I have not heard of those. I use them to override our issues with our vocal booth lights just as an alternative. Oh, so that might be a solution for my ring light thing. Is that what you're saying, Kara?
Yeah, sorry, I unmuted myself. Yeah, I don't know if everybody else, we have a pair of vocal booths and the lighting systems in them. They kind of overlap and they would turn each other's lights on and off with the remotes they gave us. So I replugged them in through those. We use those at home for our Christmas lights and things. There's a single plug for each button on the remote, and they have an on and an off switch on each side. So we have those Velcroed to the inside of the door so that when the students come in, they can have control over both lights independently. But yeah, they're just a really good system for us and easy to replace. They're not super expensive. So.
Okay. You know, I'm not even sure if this is, I guess it is being recorded, so I guess we'll have access to it later. But kind of wonder if I should like take a picture of that screen right now because I don't have anything to write with. But anyway, I'm sure I'll catch up with it later, or else I can try to reach out to people and figure out how to research that again later. So what else do you guys have? Any other setup questions or solutions?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I guess maybe a couple of questions. One, when is it that you had installed the original One Button Studio, and how long did that kind of lapse until you switched it over to like the Media Lab that you set up?
Yeah, good question. So I started here in November of 2016, and about a year later, so I would say about around the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. And probably over the last academic year when we came back after COVID, and maybe just sitting there idly for a long time is a part of the problem, I don't know. But when we came back after COVID in 2021, I'd say it's more like 2020, is when it really started acting up on us.
And you already answered another one of my questions, which was kind of, have you seen any kind of change in usage, since then, pandemic related, not pandemic related? Because I think that's certainly something that I think I've run into. I started where I am at the beginning of the year, and so they had installed the One Button Studio, I want to say 4, maybe 5 years ago, and I just don't see a lot of usage. And so it's like, is it because, what chicken or the egg situation? Is it because it's unreliable or it doesn't quite do what you need it to do? Or is it just a post-pandemic thing? Or are people more tech savvy after that, or more willing to use their own laptops or phones to make a video? I don't know what the answer is there.
Yeah, it would make a good research project to delve further into, but that's kind of one of the reasons why I was asking you guys the question, because I'm curious about that too. I don't know if things like, people just being able to record on Zoom are the contributing factor for that, or if it's, and they got more comfortable doing that, or, we pitch this as being a place where you can do a higher quality video. And so maybe the high quality isn't really that much of a factor for people anymore, because, they're so used to seeing the YouTubers with their screenshots of just, garages or whatever in the background, bedrooms, things like that. So maybe it isn't that important. Maybe it's even the green screen thing isn't that important now, because you can replace your own background with the Zoom a lot easier now. So, and, we've also had some changes with how we're doing like orientations and stuff. So we have all of our freshmen come through the library in the first couple of weeks of class for freshman orientation. And they used to kind of take a walking tour around the library. And now it is only back in one of our presentation areas, and there are a few PowerPoint slide pictures of stuff of the studio, but they're not actually seeing it. I don't know if it's making an impression. So maybe it's just bad marketing. I don't know. Like I said, that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this too, and why the roundtable format was appealing for me, because I don't claim to be an expert on all this stuff, but I'd like to hear what other people are saying who have run into similar situations.
Right. I'll do one more question, then I'll let other people talk, and it's sort of a two-parter.
Yeah, great.
From a project standpoint, of course, one thing that everyone's thinking, well, how much did it cost you? I know you reused some stuff, and everyone's situation is different. And then kind of additionally, like, how long did it take? How much energy and time did it take to be like, all right, we're going to start replacing this stuff? And how did that go?
Right. So cost, the computer that I'm using, I think is about a $1,200 value. So it depends on your budget about whether you think that is outrageous or actually pretty cheap. But otherwise, it's like a couple of $15 USB to HDMI converters. I had an extra camera lying around, because we also do technology checkout, which I think is one of the next sessions coming up. And so we wanted to try to get all of our cameras to be the same. We had this camera worked this way, this camera worked the other way. So we got rid of some of those cameras and I put some stuff in here. And so, it might cost you an extra camera if you want to do the separate light board setup. Yeah, a wireless mouse and keyboard, which I was using most of the time in the One Button Studio anyway. Just a remote that plugs into the same USB hub that we used to plug flash drives into. So I would say probably the most I would say it probably costs is about maybe $1,500. And most of that is the computer, which again, I didn't actually have to pay for. So it worked out nicely for me. But so the expense was that. This actually kind of started over the summer as a project to revise the signage, which we're doing now for this iteration of the Media Lab. But it started out as a project to revise the signage. But as I was walking through it, trying to figure out the best way the signage worked. And I'd seen some complaints about the unreliability of it before, but I really started to experience the unreliability myself during that time. And so probably around middle of July, I realized, well, that was maybe a little earlier than that, because I think the conference was like mid-July. But so beginning of July or so, I realized that maybe it was time to do something different. And I'd had a little bit of experience with the OBS studio for streaming live events. I say streaming, Zooming, using the virtual camera and switching from one place to another during COVID, when people were in their own local places, and it was a good way to switch on a more production like value, rather than having people like just voice activate or whatever when they might have been muted or so. Anyway, so I'd had a little experience with OBS Studio, and it seemed like it might be a good solution. I'd use the green screen to do a live green screen with my daughter's kindergarten class. That's what you saw, the unicorn thing going by in one of the videos. So it just seemed like a really good fit, and started looking into it, and went to the EDUCAUSE conference and asked some more people about it, got involved with that user group, and had some great responses on there as well. So it probably took maybe a month and a half, 2 months, but hopefully what I've given you would help you with that process, because a lot of it was just like, well, how am I going to do this? What's the best way to do it? And I put something together and then realized, oh, hey, this could work too. And I'll start adding more things to it. Originally, I wasn't really targeting doing a separate light board setup, but I realized how easy it would be to just add another camera. I thought about actually putting another camera, if I could get one, over an overhead camera, so people can write and you can see what they're doing. But one of the other drawbacks is you get too many inputs and things start to get a little glitchy. I had to, one of the cameras that I have, I think it's the Mac Mini, is actually plugged into one of the front USBs, because if you put too many USBs in the back, apparently it overwhelms it. But the ones in the front are in enough of a different system that it can handle the extra load. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Okay. And I did not uninstall One Button Studio until I was sure this was going to work. That was another bit of a challenge, because I needed to leave that Mac Mini kind of all plugged in and stuff. So it was the kind of the last thing I did to unplug all that stuff and make it into my green screen server, if you will, the thing that dishes up the green screen.
So something that we did at our institution, it's kind of funny, we implemented One Button Studio during the pandemic with pandemic money. And then it was such a total bust. We are in the process of tearing it down and turning it into a private multimedia studio. And we have recycled a lot of stuff from like the media center. And our biggest issue with the One Button Studio is that it was low quality and it just wasn't being used. But now that I'm, putting higher quality equipment and you can make higher quality products with it, it's I've actually had a lot of students come into my office like asking me when it's going to be ready. So I do think doing the private multimedia studio with better equipment has been, so far it seems like it's being advertised on its own without me doing a whole lot of outreach. But our One Button Studio was a total bust.
I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry you had that experience. Yeah, we also, not long after I pitched the One Button Studio in my job interview. Because I looked into it, and again, I was a video guy from way back and stuff. So I thought that was something I could bring to the library. And like I said, we bought into it whole hog, but the equipment was, the spreadsheet I think was more kept up then, because it was, I don't know when One Button Studio actually started, but we didn't start losing equipment off that list, or having it being replaced for another 2 years or so after I got involved with putting the One Button Studio stuff together. So we also kind of had to, we got the money not long after I started, and I had a limited time to spend it. I wasn't really planning on putting together a studio that quickly, but the opportunity came along, and so I had to spend the money very quickly. And so rather than evaluating what everything on the list was, I just bought it all. I was lucky enough to be able to have the money to do that. Maybe I just look into a lot of stuff, and so maybe I'm talking about how I reuse things, and maybe I'm just luckier than most people about being able to find the equipment. But but I have noticed, like, the original camera that we were using is no longer able to be purchased. So I did actually have to replace our 1-button studio camera at one point. And so that's why you'll find 2 of them on the design guide, because one of them was the original model and one of them is the higher graded model. Like I said, it does 4K that we bought to replace it. So but I'm glad you're able to recycle it like we have been talking about. And if you have any questions about other ways that you can to reuse some of the stuff, feel free to reach out. Or so I'm not sure if I caught a real question in there, if you're just making a statement, which is awesome because it is a roundtable and other people should be able to contribute. But this is my feedback on that. So.
Okay, I have a question. I know it's supposed to be do it yourself, but how much help do you find people in general need? Are they generally self-sufficient, or do you
Usually once I give them a quick tour of the room, because it is a little hard to understand how to use the room just from seeing it written down, and that video goes by so fast and stuff, but you don't want to, you don't want to have like a 5-minute video playing about how to work the room. So oftentimes we do have the room as something you need to book in advance, and they can do that on the website, but oftentimes they'll contact me to do it, and I'll just kind of try to drop in on them, and even uninvited a little bit, and say, hey, do you have any questions about the room? I'll give them a little tour about it real quick. But once I give them that quick tour, then they're usually off and running. I find that if I don't give them the tour, one of the biggest things that happens is they don't bother with trying to adjust the video camera, and we'll end up with, like, chins on the floor, this kind of shot. Let's make it even better. This kind of shot, because they're not framing things up, so. But as far as actually, just hitting the buttons to start and stop, they do fine. And the QR code I've got doesn't work really well if you're going to go editing something, but it works really great in the room for just previewing what you just recorded. So I originally thought that the QR code was going to be used more, but then I realized, yeah, if you're going to, like, edit out the beginning and the end, or make any changes throughout, then the bit.ly was also important to have. Flash drive never worked, and quality, I'm reading a chat. We had the same issues. Flash drive never worked, and quality of video was not great. Patrons asked us questions all the time. Yeah. We had, once we stopped with the jar of flash drives, we had one kind of put away just for emergency use only. We tried very hard to get them to bring their own flash drive, and if they didn't, and if it was too hard to go get one, then we would loan them the flash drive with, the penalty of death hanging over their shoulders if they didn't return it. But really not much we could have done if they would have taken that one either. But we just threatened a lot more. Just an FYI, this is what we have. Okay, very cool. I don't know if Oscar's listening or not, but I assume again that we will have access to this Zoom recording later, including the chat, so we can go back and get those links. Because I would very much love to see that. I love to see what other people do. Every time I go on a conference in person, that's one of the big things I want to do, is go see their studio. So we are at 1 o'clock. I guess we've technically got like another half hour left, so keep them coming. But if you feel like you want to end, we can too.
Could you
guys
please,
have been try?
I'm sorry. Could you please maybe go into a little more detail on the storage mechanism and how it ties in with the OBS software?
Okay. This is something I hadn't really messed with until this. I accidentally installed it back at the beginning of the Google Drive days on my Mac, and it ended up, filling up my Mac with a bunch of stuff because everything's saved there as well. But really, everything just saves to the internal hard drive of the computer. There is a Google Drive for Desktop app. Let's see if we can buzz over there real quick. So there's a Google Drive for Desktop app, and I have put the instructions on there. Got it. Recording storage. So these are the instructions for how to use that. So basically, it will mirror the files on your desktop right up to Google Drive. So it actually saves in 2 places, which is nice. Good to have a backup. Certainly ran into that several times with the One Button Studio, where people would pull out their flash drives before it was done recording. So it was always nice to be able to go get it from the hard drive as well. And we haven't run into that yet, but I do like the fact that it is redundant. So it's a desktop sync, and it happens very quickly. I've seen no real lag time other than just the amount of time it takes for a video to upload over our very quick internet that we have here. You can sync files between your cloud and your computer. What's the means? Here's how to do it. Configure drive, open drive for desktop. Click on preferences. On the left, click folders from drive. Under my drive syncing options, select stream files or mirror files. I believe I've got mirror. And configure other folders on your computer. So would I be able to walk through this without this guide myself? No, I would not. But hopefully this will give you the instructions that you need in order to be able to do that. But it's a fairly common thing. I think a lot of people use this just in their everyday lives. I just never really found the need to. Plus, honestly, we are a Microsoft 365 university. And that was my first thought, was to use OneDrive. But the way I had it set up originally, at least, it felt like I needed to sign in with my own account, or, in order for it to be able to get everything put up, I had to sign in with my own account. We have a library Google account. So it's like library@mail.fhsu.edu. And so I was able to do that without putting things on my own personal login stuff. And not that really people can get on it anyway, other than as long as you say it's for viewing and downloading only. But it wigged me out a little bit, so I went with the Google Drive. And again, it's worked out really well. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I actually have a question, kind of coming from that. My my university is super against Google Drive, all things Google, which is very sad because I really like Google. My thing with OneDrive, though, would there be a way for the institution to, for example, my library would have their own 365 account, and then you could have the OneDrive work off of the library account? That way it's not like going onto a personal account, right? Is that possible?
It seems like it would be. It sounds like what I'm doing with Google, that, again, it's just going to a more ubiquitous, not personal account. So, I mean, I guess that was the other thing. I didn't want to fill up my OneDrive with people's videos. And I do, I haven't had enough usage yet of it to really worry about it, but I have an idea in mind at some point to say, like, after 1 month, I'm going to clear off the videos that are a month old. So in order to be able to keep the drive clear enough for other people to record on. But yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't work. There are probably other cloud services out there also that you could have mirror places on your hard drive. I don't know if anybody still uses Dropbox, but I assume it would do the same thing. You can still use, I've got it highlighted over here, you can still use the flash drive idea. So plug in a USB port and So in the settings of One Button Studio, you can tell it to record to any place you want, any sort of labeled drive, A, B, C, N, whatever. And so as long as it's got a place that you can navigate to or browse to on your Windows Explorer, or it does work on Mac as well, so your Finder, you should be able to save there. So that includes external drives. And if you've got a way for people to access that, then you're good to go.
I'm surprised to hear that people are saying that they're finding their One Button Studios aren't used that much. We have a fair amount of usage of the two that we have right next to each other. It's a little bit of a different setup than what you're doing, so I'll explain that first before I get into what we're using them for. When we wanted a One Button Studio, there was a library renovation happening in it opened in 2017. But leadership decided they didn't really want a One Button Studio. They wanted a 10 to 15 button studio. So it's got more customization that the users can do. And the trade-off is that the students need like a 15-minute orientation, which at this point, we've stopped telling them everything in the room they can do. And we just ask them, what do you want to do? And
Exactly.
we teach to that. So a vendor set it up for us. So as a pro, we got some features before they were available in OBS. But as a con, we don't have access to everything like we built the system. It's not easy for us to add in things like Zoom integration as it would have been if we had built it ourselves. So when students—
Is your platform OBS Studio though, the platform you were using? Or something else like?
No, it's kind of a custom vendor built solution.
Extron type of thing or something.
Yeah, we have Extron controllers for the users to use. There's a hard drive in the rack that is the video file backup, because the USB integration is pretty terrible. It has been since day one. If users need to adapt to the room, we lend cameras and microphones 30 feet away at a desk, so they'll bring those in if they need to. But the way we try to explain the room to them is it's a quiet, bookable space with controllable lighting. So we get a lot of podcasting recording that goes in there. We get a lot of photography for items or for headshot services. If you've got a student group on campus that'll do headshots, you can have a line out the door of people that'll gladly take a free headshot with a green screen background and like 10 pretty pictures from around campus that they can throw behind themselves. But I think we found that
are you just using the video lighting for your still photography, or do you have more of a flash setup also?
No, it's just color tunable lighting. It's just like between 3K and 6K. And that's enough for most of what they're doing. But student group involvement, if you can find the photography group on campus, we just found a couple VR groups on campus, and that's a lot. And sometimes it's something like a drone user group, but it turns out they want to make how-to videos. So then they need you for that. So it seems like we've just had one thing after the other for years at this point, and they're still getting used.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And yeah, I do think that promotion is a big part of our problem. We have an outreach group here within the library, and it's their job to do the promotion stuff. And I'm hoping that once we get the signage put up, that they will use that, because they're designing the signage as well. I'm hoping they'll use that as a kind of initiative to advertise it more. But most of our advertising goes through social media, our own social media accounts, so Forsyth Library. But if people aren't following Forsyth Library, unless we get some shares someplace, they're not going to see those things. So yeah, I feel like we kind of run into that problem. I don't want to interrupt you, and we're going to come back to that, but I do want to stick a pin in the idea of, to use that old cliche, of other types of studios as well, such as photography and things, because we're doing a renovation soon too, and we're thinking about adding more of a voiceover type of capability, and doing better sound insulation in the room itself, and photography, VRs come up. So we're looking at that sort of thing too. Anyway, go ahead, Brian. Unless you were done.
Yeah, I don't have anything, sorry.
Oh, again, I'm looking at a very small, far away thing here with your names. And so maybe I called the wrong guy. Whoever was talking last time, though, if I interrupted you, feel free to continue.
No, I think that was it.
Okay. Hey, Paul, you know the size of your campus, roughly the amount of students.
Yes, we have about 3,000 undergrads, and I would guess 10,000 graduate and doc and postdocs.
Okay. We are about 5,000 on campus. We have a very large virtual contingency. Sorry, we're online now. We used to call it virtual. It's a new rebranding thing. So we have probably another 15,000 or so online, including a partnership in China. So obviously this is targeted purely at on-campus because you have to be here to use it. But yeah, our 5,000 students, like I said, used to use it a lot better, but something changed after the pandemic, and I don't know if it's the lack of tours there or what, but.
I was more so asking that question because I'm surprised that your One Button Studio is successful, because I've not heard anybody have a good time with it. So I'm just trying to figure out, like, is it the size of the campus? Are you guys just promoting it more? I don't know. Well, we also got our One Button Studio during the pandemic, so that probably skews a lot of the success for our studios as well.
Yeah, like I said, we were a lot more successful before the lockdown.
And I
Paul?
imagine it depends too on like what other options are available around campus, right? Like I'm talking about undergrads, and we show them how to use it, and then we kind of set them free. But there aren't options for some other staff members, including some senior staff around the university. And so when they want to do something, we'll take our whole team and turn them into a production team and just do it for them. So I guess it's a mix depending on what you have around.
Okay, so Paul, I've got a couple of questions. You've mentioned a student VR group. Can you tell me what they're using the rooms for?
Yeah, so that's actually that's another room next door that we set up as a VR studio, what we're calling the Hive. There are a couple of sensors in that room that integrate into a VR. I think it's well, it's a pretty blank space. It's got a couple of sensors, and it's basically for if you want to try out some higher end VR or the lower end stuff that we loan. It's a space for that. There's office hours once a week. There's some staff to answer questions. The student groups themselves are doing their own wild things in their own spaces. There's one that is focused on the connection between art and technology. And so they're putting on some mind-bending exhibits for how to use it. There's another that is more on the like what you can get in a Quest or the Oculus level, making content for that kind of thing. We use it also in course support. Chemistry is a huge user of the VR headsets, but also language classes. Since the headsets are so immersive, it lends itself to immersive language learning. So I think that's most of what we used it for the last year or so.
Okay, thanks. And you also mentioned sometimes you do it all for staff if they have a project. How many people on your production team, and can you just briefly go over their role?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, they're fairly small productions. The room itself is pretty small. And with, COVID era, we have like one person in the room with them, maybe. There's a glass wall at the other end. And so we tend to set up a big rolling monitor out there if we need a cue card kind of set up for them. I tend to stand outside the room and just kind of like keep an eye on what's going on and troubleshoot anything. But there's basically the team sets up the cameras and the microphones as well as they can. They bring the talent in, they adjust, and then they get as many takes as the talent's up for.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
we're coming down to the end. Real quick, I'll throw out too that as I was putting together this presentation this week, somebody came in and they wanted to use a teleprompter. And in the past, I've kind of put a teleprompter under a music stand on top of a chair, or an iPad is what I use. There's free teleprompter apps on iPads, so you can tap them to pause them and start them again to keep up with the reader. And I noticed that now that I have the camera on a tripod next to the pipe, that's still kind of supporting the tripod, but it's really not doing anything, and it's got a big hole at the top of it. So I whipped together some PVC pipe real quick, and my iPad has a folder that goes back. So it's kind of got a T at the end of the PVC pipe with another PVC pipe, and I just clamped that on there. And so now it like swivels back and forth and stuff. I didn't include it in here because it was, over and above what we were trying to get through today, but and it certainly hasn't in any of the signage and stuff, but it's not uncommon at all for people to ask for teleprompters. And so I do try to be fleet of foot with that and ready to supply it if need be, but it's not something I'll leave out, partly because it's not really a great way to secure the iPad, at least the way I've come up with it, and it could walk off. But I guess you could put a bike chain around it the way I'm talking about doing, but you could still probably slip it out of there pretty easily. So.
Okay, and Andy, you covered some of this at the beginning of your talk, but I'm trying to head off someone putting in 6 one-button studios in our future library space. So what ammunition can you all give me?
The fact that if you look at their spreadsheet, I would say there's probably already some, I haven't looked at it super recently, but I'd say there's probably already some things that you can't buy anymore. And so you're gonna have to come up with substitutes for that. Again, even Penn State has moved on from the one button studio that they are currently, or that we were using. But they don't share that information anymore. If you have coders on staff, they do actually, I think it's for the second iteration, but it might just be the first. Yeah, I think it is the first. They offer the code and you can do whatever you want to with it. But again, I'm not a coder. I don't even know what coding language it's in. I've got the code. If you need it, I'll send it to you. I think I can dig it up again. So I wouldn't know how to manipulate it anyway. So I looked at that before I delved into this project, but this is what I came up with. Anybody else have any suggestions for Kelly?
I mean, I think some of the stuff that Paul and other people talked about as far as the options that people have, and one of the things we couldn't get OBS to work in our booths when we built them, but I think it's a better sell to say that you're able to offer different levels of software depending on what students need. So like OBS, we have the software that Andy's using now on our machines for people to use if they want, and it goes all the way up, like it goes all the way up to like Logic Pro X. It just depends on the level of what students want and what they need or what's required for their classes. We also have our campus uses Panopto for lecture recording and things, and so we have that installed, so that's ready to go for faculty, or if they set up folders, we have a way to help faculty with that. So I think that but we've learned after our OBS attempt failed 4 years ago, even it wouldn't even work then for us, was that it can be, if you sell it that way, it's very limiting to what students can do. They don't have a whole lot of control. And I think like what you've done, Andy, is given people the feel of all of that, right? The ease of the one button, but also they have a lot more options available to them. And I think that's the happy medium for students, because you never know what they want to do with the space. And I think that trying to stick to Penn State's plan is not necessarily the best plan for everybody. So.
Thank you. That was indeed my goal. You mentioned Panopto. Somebody had a question about the Google Drive setup and stuff, but we have VidGrid here on campus. And I think, I know VidGrid will automatically take some stuff like from Zoom. And so there might be a workaround where we could get stuff to upload directly from here, maybe using Zoom as a middleman somehow or another. It's not as elegant, I don't think, up to VidGrid. But I know Panopto also has a lot of functionality for automatic uploads as well, for like lecture capture and stuff. So that might be another solution if you have something like that, or oh, I'm drawing a blank on the other big one right now. Feels like it starts with a K, but I don't know. So one of those types of solutions might be another answer. I'm reading 1:21 on my clock. They said they had till 2:30. I don't know if we'll get shut off automatically or what, but I'm happy to continue talking a few more minutes. I did want to go to the next presentation, which I think starts at 1:30. So maybe we'll start wrapping it up. But again, you've got my contact information if you need it. I'll throw that back up again real quick. And that link there, the little chain link, goes to our technology in the library website, which is mostly what I do. And once again, it's got the QR code for the slides. So any other last minute quick questions or thoughts? It's just burning to get out. All right. Hey, thank you everybody for a lively discussion. I was worried that I was going to go 15 minutes and then just have crickets because I didn't really plan anything else after that. So thank you for participating, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. I wish I could join you for the in-person one, and I had the trip booked, but our architects for our remodel decided to book the kickoff meeting for that week, and so I ended up canceling. So I hate that online is all I'll be able to see you, but hopefully next year I'll be able to join you in person. So. All right, I'm gonna hit end. I think I have I think I'm supposed to do that when we're done. So, all right, see you in future conferences. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy.
Okay,
Thanks,
so
Andy.
Oscar, it's okay for me to hit end? I think maybe Oscar left.